All right, in part 6, we're going to cover cables, ice, and snow. First thing we're going to do is, as you can see off camera, between the last episode, I started adding some snow, and I just took my paper mache that I've showed you how to make a million times, and I've started putting it around the base. Now, I will cover how to make paper mache again, but I'm going to show you how we covered that seam with the snow, and the idea being that I wanted some of that base to pop out underneath. So there's going to be snow accumulating all around the base of it, but we're still going to get little flashes of the base here and there on the bottom. But now it's time to take our blue-green paint and put a base layer along the bottom, making sure that we cover all these divots and these gouge marks, because that's going to make it look like slush and ice. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this water effect once the paint dries, and we're going to apply it in a couple of layers. But first we're going to just take a little bit of paint and mix up kind of a custom color. Now there's nothing special with this. This is just any color paint you have in that light blue, sky blue, aqua green color. That's what we're going for, sort of a slushy ice look. And we're going to take those two colors, we're going to blend it with a little bit of just white acrylic paint. All these paints are acrylic. And we're also going to add just a dash of Mod Podge in it. And then that's going to provide a waterproof, non-permeable layer along the base. And that way we can do all of the things that we want to do. So in goes the Mod Podge. Now we're just going to take this brush. We're going to mix it up. There you go. We're just going to mix it up, make sure it's, well blended, so we get kind of a uniform color. And once that's all mixed up, then we're going to start applying it to the base. And you want to make sure, as with all of these projects, that you get all the little nooks and crannies that we gouged out. That's going to be important. So just take your time, fill it in, and remember, this is not going to be the finished color. This is just, we're building layer upon layer of paper mache, paint, ice, water effect, all of those things. This is how we get that depth and that richness. So I'm going to finish up this pink foam section, ensuring that all the nooks and crannies are filled. And I'll be back in a moment, and I'll show you what the next step is in this process. All right, so we got the whole surface prepped with this aqua blue, light blue paint. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around to the snow that we have, and I'm gonna just start touching in the little areas. So there's gonna be some ice and some blue discoloration, or snow reflective ice on this. So I'm just sort of going around the perimeter of the snow. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over that snow again with white and with all kinds of things. And but that blue is going to pop out underneath. And when we put the water ice effect over it, it's going to really make it look cool. So take a moment and just kind of hit where you might think ice would accumulate. That's going to be the important part. And this really kind of adds quite a bit to the finished product. And of course, when you live up in New England like I do, in the Northeast, we are no strangers to snow, and I'm a very good study of what snow looks like when it piles and accumulates. And after a while, snow typically compacts and turns into ice. So that's what I'm trying to mimic right here. So I thought with this ion cannon base, having been permanently placed there on Hoth, a decade or two of ice and snow would definitely have accumulated around those sort of unmanaged parts. So grab your water and ice effect, because it's now time to start filling in that divot where we made that area right there. We're going to fill that in. So go grab that stuff and we'll be right back. Now this stuff you'll find in the hobby section of like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something like that. It's typically where you find modeling materials, and it's great. Now what you want to do is don't shake it. That's really important. Don't shake this stuff. You want to try to have zero bubbles. And what you want to do is just very lightly pour it into the divots that you made. Go very slowly, eliminate any bubbles. But if you do get a bubble, you can just pull it out with like a toothpick or something. But what you want to do is do a light coat. So you don't have to fill it up all the way to start. We're going to actually do this in maybe 2 or 3 applications. So the first application, I'm just making sure I get all the low points, the low nooks and crannies. And you can see already it's starting to look a little bit like ice. And once we put some snow and some snow dust on top of it, I think you'll find it looks pretty good. And the real key to this is let it dry in between coats. So if you have a wood stove or a fireplace or a heater or something like that in the wintertime, I recommend putting it nearby. Don't put it directly on the heat, but put it nearby just so that it gets ambient heat. And that way you'll have a nice uniform drying. And each one of these, it takes about, I would say it takes somewhere between 2 and 3 hours per coat to dry. Don't rush it. There's no race here. It's going to come out much better if you take your time. So now the moment that everybody's been waiting for, how do you do the snow? So this is my technique. There's a million ways to do it. I'm going for sort of a snow and ice combo. And so what I do is I take my paper mache that I've made in many other projects, and I've got a big tub of it just to my left here. I'm going to show it to you right now. And this is just the toilet paper, the glue, a little bit of water. You just mix it up, and it just makes it an incredibly stable, great paper mache. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, it's nice and firm. Yeah, I don't want it too soupy. I'd like to have it fairly firm. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that brush and I'm going to just start placing it where I feel like I want the snow. And you're just going to make peaks and you're going to make troughs just like any pile of snow would have. And I'm using that paintbrush to sort of have it adhere to the base. And then the brushes also make a nice, sort of a nice general snow pile texture. So a very simple technique. It's very similar to like when I was making the rocks for Tatooine or for Geonosis. It's the same technique, except now I'm trying to make it look like, piles of snow. It's like I always say whenever I'm doing these landscapes, there's no such thing as the wrong pile of snow. You can't do it wrong. It's your snow. So this is the way I see the snow in my mind. You may or may not want to have ice, like an icy path through it. That's fine. You can omit that if you want to. No rules here, right? This is just the way I see it in my head. I see sort of like this icy, slushy path leading to it. Maybe you see a slushy path or an icy path. Maybe you don't. That's the thing about this. This is just the technique to show you how to do it. If you want to, then you can just make it your own, I always thought HOTH had probably some places on it where maybe it was slightly warmer, or maybe the sun shone on it and maybe made lichens, or maybe even some mossy areas where, things took root. And I might even go with that idea when I do the larger piece, when we're done with this ion cannon. I've got some ideas on maybe how to incorporate that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Most of the fun for me comes in pushing and see what I can get away with. So, we're obviously going to keep it very, very traditionally HOTH, but I might throw a couple of curveballs in it. Why not, right? If I don't like it, I can always just paint over it. So we might get the old chalks out and see if we can put some mossy areas or lichens or something where maybe those things would collect. So we'll see. One thing I wanted to mention was when I made the base for the ion cannon, I always intended it to have the base of it covered in snow. So, this is a fun way to sort of get creative and put your own spin on it. You might want to have it where the snow is completely covering the bottom of the base, like you see mine, or you might want to have the base completely devoid of snow. Either one is fine. So I'm just doing it this way, and I'm letting tiny little bits peek out. But I really wanted to go for this idea that this had been here for maybe a decade or so, and that the rebels, they do the best they can, but the snow is starting to creep up and sort of almost consume the base of it, which I thought was kind of cool. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm just going to bring all that snow out to the tip of that little peninsula there, following the icy walkway that I've made. I've really enjoyed making the turret bases for the ion cannon. And as you'll see at the end of this video, I've made another one for the larger diorama base. But I think you could take this technique, sort of a round cylindrical cup, and apply it to lots of different Star Wars environments, And when it comes to making this snow, you don't need any special equipment. I'm just using a brush that I had from my pile. I do like to use a soft bristle brush because it kind of gives it just the right texture, without having to grab any other tools. This works really well. And as you can tell, my paper mache is firm but very malleable at the same time. So, it's just a nice combination. And you'll see in the oncoming steps how we take that snow base and we sort of make it even more snowy looking over the next coming steps. All right, so here's the path that I made in the snow, if you will, with that icy base. And I've just gone around to the end of that peninsula with the snow, and I've kind of, staggered it, made it look like piles of snow that maybe some of the rebels have been walking on, or, something like that. The idea is to give it a little bit of texture and a little bit of depth. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take some of that water effect, and we're going to start doing a second layer and incorporating the edge of those snow piles into and underneath the ice. So that's what we're going to do now. So this is going to be the second of really 3 layers of the water effect. And it dries pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to not pour it on, but drip it on. I'm just dripping it on, so 1 or 2 little drops at a time. And I'm trying to incorporate that layer between where the snow and the ice are. So if you can imagine the way snow and ice sort of work together, there's always that spot where the snow sort of is either on top or just underneath the surface of the ice. So that's what I'm trying to do now. And so just go around it, and then in a moment, I'm going to show you what else I do with this. Now, after I do the path, you're going to see I take the water effect, and I'm going to start going into some of the nooks and crannies on the tops of the snow, almost as if that's where ice would be. So there you can see me. I'm taking some of the low areas, the divots and whatnot, and I'm putting a drop or 2 of that water effect in to sort of level it out and give it that sort of sheen and that sort of idea that maybe some of the surface snow has melted into a hard ice sheet. And then is one of the more satisfying parts. I'm taking a blend of white paint, the water effect, and some glossy Mod Podge, and I'm using that aqua green color paint, and I've mixed it all together, and now I'm hitting. It's a very fluid, milky. You don't want it too thick. You want it nice and watery almost. And you're going to take your brush, and you're going to brush some of that light blue green onto some of the wherever you want it on the snow. And as we keep adding paint to it, some of that blue-green will be covered, some of it will be exposed, and it's going to make for a really nice snowy, icy effect. So I'm just going to keep on doing this for a couple of minutes, and we'll see you in a second. Now there's two more things I'm going to do when I'm done with this. That is go over the entire thing again, but this time use a white paint with the Mod Podge and the liquid water. And that way we're going to blend those together. Finally, what we're going to do, and you might be able to see it here and the turnaround, is that I took my white powder, my powder there, the weathering powders, and I went over the ice sheet with it. So the ice pathway that the Stormtrooper is standing on right now, there's many, many layers to it. And if you were to look at it up close, when we're finally done with this entire project, I'm going to take a lot of nice still photos of it so you can see the depth and the different colors, that gray, blue, green, and white. But now we're going to put the ion cannon companion piece away for a bit, and it's time to start cooking on the main display base. And we've got a lot of fun things to do with that. Remember, this is going to be a 2, maybe even a 3-part diorama, and they're going to be modular so you can fit them and move them around. So for the first part, what we're going to do is I've made another one of those bases, and this is going to be more for that turret style cannon that the Hoth Rebels had. And I've done the same thing. I've detailed it similarly to the ion cannon. And now what we're going to do is we're going to modify it to have that cannon turret sort of semicircular top. We're going to have it spin around, and we're going to incorporate that. And that is actually going to be sort of in front of an ice wall with an access doorway for small equipment. So stick around. Let's get going on that part. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you so much as always.